I'm hoping what happens in California will not stay in California, but spread all across the country.
The governor proposes increasing the state's minimum wage. We will have the details. Rebates on electric car purchases are being updated. Who wins and who loses when the rules change tomorrow?
This is the biggest thing I've ever recycled.
And a local homeowner with a whole new take on going green. This is Evening Edition on KPBS. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Governor Jerry Brown outlined a deal today that would increase California's minimum wage to $15 an hour by 2022. He says raising it is a matter of economic justice, but consideration would be given to delaying it in case of recession or other economic shortfall.
This is a proposal that takes into account the possibility of deficits. According to the formula, if 2 years out there's a deficit of a certain amount, then this can be deferred.
The governor's plan has the minimum wage increasing by 50 cents on January 1st to $10.50 and $1 every year after that until 2022. The legislature is expected to vote on the plan this week. If passed, it would make California the first state in the nation to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. The GOP has responded to today's announcement. The Republican leader of the Assembly released a statement saying they are concerned that raising the minimum wage will help some of the state's workforce, but will hurt the state's already high cost of living. And no matter what the state does, voters in San Diego will still be deciding whether to raise the city's minimum wage. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen explains the local impact of raising the minimum wage statewide.
If San Diegans vote yes on June 7th, the city's minimum wage would be 50 cents higher than the state's for the rest of this year and $1 higher in 2017. After that point, the state's increases would outpace San Diego's. Sean Carafin from the San Diego Regional Chamber of Commerce says local businesses have been worried about the city's wage hike, but the state's is even tougher to swallow.
We could make that comparison if we were talking about the same or even similar numbers. The sheer volume of this increase is by far the largest concern of small businesses.
Well, San Diego's law would go farther than the state in one way. Local businesses would have to offer 5 paid sick days a year. The proposed state law would require only 3. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
And California State University professors are getting some support in their push for a 5% pay raise. A fact finder says they should get it over the next year and that the money should come from other projects. The university system's been offering just 2%, saying there's no money for anything more. Faculty members are planning a 5-day strike next month if there's no agreement. The FBI says it's broken into an iPhone belonging to a gunman in last year's San Bernardino shootings. Agents hope to find evidence about the shooting on the phone. The announcement ends a court battle between the agency and Apple over hacking into iPhones. That touched off a debate over privacy rights versus security concerns. The Prime Minister of Pakistan vowed to hunt down and defeat the militants who carried out a bombing that targeted Christians over the weekend. 72 people died in the Easter attack in Lahore. A breakaway Taliban faction that supports the Islamic State has claimed responsibility. Although the attack targeted Christians, most of those killed were Muslims who were on holiday. At least 300 people were wounded in the bombing. 4 more people wounded in last week's terror attacks in Brussels have died. The Belgian minister says the death toll is now 35. Meanwhile, U.S. authorities have confirmed that 4 Americans were killed in the attacks, including a husband and wife who were dropping someone off at the Brussels airport. The U.S. Capitol and the White House were put on lockdown for a short time today after police shot a man who pulled out a gun at a Capitol checkpoint. This happened at the Capitol Visitors Center. The suspect was wounded. Capitol Police say he is someone who had been on the Capitol grounds before, and they say there's no indication this is more than a criminal act. U.S. Customs and Protection is reviewing an incident at the San Ysidro port of entry involving a disabled transgender Mexican woman. We first told you about this story last week. KPBS Fronteras reporter Jean Guerrero has an update.
The American Civil Liberties Union says the woman was seeking asylum and was denied food for over 30 hours. The ACLU says the incident is part of a larger pattern of abuses at the port of entry. In an emailed statement, Customs and Border Protection says the agency takes these kinds of complaints seriously and is reviewing the incident. The ACLU is asking the border agency for a formal apology and for public disclosure of its policies regarding food and water for asylum seekers. Jean Guerrero, KPBS News.
Immigration officials say they've made more than 1,000 arrests nationwide after a 5-week operation targeting gang members and cross-border criminals. 9 of those arrests were here in San Diego County, and nearly 200 more were made in greater Los Angeles area, which includes Orange and Riverside counties. The operation was called Project Shadowfire and targeted drug and sex trafficking and human smuggling. California lawmakers examined new plans for the highly anticipated high-speed rail. The new plan shifts construction to the San Francisco Bay Area rather than Southern California. It also postpones the service by 3 years. In the meantime, some project opponents have been gathering signatures for a ballot initiative which would let voters decide whether to take existing high-speed rail funds and use them for water projects. And starting tomorrow, more people will have access to the state's rebate program for electric vehicles. But KPBS reporter Steve Walsh says for high earners, the program is about to run out of power.
If you can afford to pay cash for an electric BMW, this is probably not good news. You'll have until midnight before new income guidelines are going into effect for the state's popular Clean Vehicles Rebate Program. Up until today, anyone who brought an electric vehicle qualified for a rebate.
Well, the state wants to increase access to these vehicles to as many consumers as they can. And one way to do that is to increase the incentive for the lower income consumers in California. And because of budget constraints, they're also going to limit the highest income earners.
So beginning tomorrow, if you make over $250,000 as a single tax filer, you'll no longer qualify. The good news is, for any household earning less than 300% of the federal poverty guideline, that credit is about to go up an extra $1,500. The Center for Sustainable Energy surveyed electric car buyers and found that half of them felt they wouldn't be able to afford a vehicle without the incentive. So their hope is the change puts more electric cars on the road. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
More than 200,000 disabled and elderly people in California are able to continue living at home thanks to a state program that pays for caretakers that live with them. But those caretakers have been living in a tax limbo for 2 years, affecting their income and leaving them stressed and confused. Here with the details is iNews Source reporter Leo Castañeda.
When we talk about in-home caretakers, we talk about people like Kathy Ellerin. Her 19-year-old daughter, Natalia, has cerebral palsy. They live together in Bonita, and Ellerin's full-time job is taking care of her daughter. That includes feeding and washing her, taking her to doctor appointments, and therapy. But that's not all. Here's Ellerin.
The bulk of in-home supportive services protective supervision is keeping the person safe.
2 years ago, there was a new challenge for caretakers like Ellerin. The IRS said that they didn't have to pay income on their wages for the caretaker program. But there was some confusion about whether the tax break applies to California caretakers. So for 2 years after the announcement, Ellerin continued paying income tax while she tried to find out if she could get the tax break.
It was very, very frustrating because it's like, that carrot up there, you're just like, it's dangling. It's like, okay, we know that this is a law, but nobody is giving us information. And how do we do it? How do we proceed accordingly? And, are we going to get in trouble for this? And nobody really wanted to take a stance on it, is what it was, because they didn't even have the information.
One California accountant thought caretakers like Ellerin were eligible. She filed amended tax returns for her clients, getting them average refunds of $5,000 per family per year. The state, which had stated in the past that California caregivers couldn't get the tax break, asked the IRS to weigh in on the debate. Earlier this month, it did. Its verdict: caretakers here who live with the person they are taking care of, like Ellerin and her daughter Natalia, don't have to pay income tax. For more on this story and to see how it might impact local caretakers, go to inewssource.org. For KPBS, I'm iNewsSource reporter Leo Castañeda.
And you may have noticed it was cloudy and windy today in San Diego, with more gusty conditions for the mountains and deserts on the way. Molly Cochran has more in your KPBS weather report.
Well, we're dealing with some unsettled weather across the California area, including San Francisco back towards San Diego, in the way of some clouds, something we're not too used to. Here's a look at our satellite and radar over the past 6 hours. We can see some mountain snow showing up across the Sierra Nevadas near Reno, and also some cloud cover creeping to the south. It's all associated with a trough that's setting up, and that indicates some unsettled weather. So the jet stream dips to the south, bringing with it some unsettled weather, cloud cover, and typically some cooler air as well. So here's a look at our viewing area over the past 6 hours. We can see a few clouds showing up and even some specks of green. So as we head into the overnight hours and into early Tuesday morning, we will be likely seeing some passing showers. Believe it or not, nothing too widespread or long-lived, just pretty hit or miss across the region. Oceanside back towards San Diego, even across the mountainous areas towards Mount Laguna. That's going to be changing over to snow. Overnight low tonight at 30. So that's 2 degrees below the freezing mark. And again, expecting some snowflakes flying around. Now here's a look at Tuesday. Again, we are going to be noticeably cooler across Southern California and anticipating some sunshine out by the afternoon and especially by Wednesday. So early Tuesday morning, still unsettled with cloud cover and the chance for a passing shower. And the winds are going to be ramping up from Las Vegas back towards Phoenix. So here's a look at our 5-day outlook across the coastline. Tuesday, if you're headed out early, I think we could get away with a passing shower, clearing skies as we head into the later half of the day and into Wednesday. 63 degrees for a daytime high here. That is a few degrees below average and will stay in the 40s for the overnight. Partly sunny skies by Thursday, turning more seasonable with a high of 64 in the mid to upper 60s by Friday. Pretty similar setup in the interior sections Tuesday, a brief shower or two, daytime highs in the lower 60s, a spotty shower possible Wednesday, but we are anticipating clearer skies as we head into the middle half of the week with temperatures in the mid to upper 60s. Across the mountainous regions, some snow showers possible through Tuesday, daytime high of 41. Overnight lows Tuesday night dip back into the upper 20s. A snow shower still possible on Wednesday. Will still remain cool into the middle half of the week, but feeling a little bit better at 55 and partly sunny. Here's a look across the deserts. We'll be enjoying some sunshine, but feeling the coolness. That's definitely going to be the main key here. Temperatures in the lower 70s for Tuesday and Wednesday, upper 70s by Thursday with mostly sunny skies. Molly Cochran, KPBS News.
And much of the attention in this year's San Diego city elections has been on City Council District 1. The open seat could change the council from majority Democrat to majority Republican. But KPBS reporter Claire Trugesser says Democrats in 2 other races are putting up fights, too, trying to unseat Republican incumbents.
City Councilman Scott Sherman is just starting to hang up signs in his new campaign office. He's hoping he won't be here long.
Short lease and with an option to renew if we need it, but hopefully we won't.
Sherman is running for re-election in District 7, which runs from Mission Valley and Del Cerro to Miramar. He's one of 2 Republican incumbents on the city council who could win outright in the June election. That'll happen if he gets more than 50% of the vote. Still, he's not skipping campaign mode.
Like in the business world, you know, if you take something for granted, that's the minute it doesn't happen. So you want to make sure that you plan for the worst and hope for the best.
People don't need to discount the race. I think in the last few months with the support we've had, we've really seen that people know that 1, that we can win, and 2, it's important that we do so.
Justin DeCesar is one of 2 Democrats running against Sherman. He thinks he has a shot not only of extending the race past June, but of actually winning.
Our campaign is based on going door to door and talking to voters, and if we walk, we're going to win.
He points out the district has more registered Democrats and that he's been endorsed by the Firefighters Union and the local Democratic Party. That party endorsement comes with money for mailers, email blasts, and volunteers. But a lot of that support will likely be directed at another district.
District 1 is definitely the biggest focus because a Democrat now holds that seat, and there's a good chance that we'll continue to hold that seat.
Democratic Party Chairwoman Francine Busby says the Democrats will spend most of their time and money fighting to keep District 1, which covers La Jolla and University City. Democrat Sherry Leitner holds the seat now. She's in her last term, and Republican Ray Ellis hopes to take the seat. That would shift the city council to a Republican majority. Busby says candidates like DeCesar will have to prove to the Democratic Party they're worthy of support.
We're going to look at our candidates and look at the strengths of the candidates in polling and exactly what the turnout models are looking like. And then, of course, we'll be looking at fundraising and talking to their supporters.
There are 3 other Democrats also hoping to unseat the incumbent Republicans this year. Jose Caballero in District 7, Keith Meekus in District 5, and Frank Zimbukakis in District 5. Republican Mark Kersey currently holds the District 5 seat, which runs from Scripps Ranch to San Pasqual. It's the only council district with a majority of Republicans. In 2012, Kersey ran unopposed, but not this time.
That's okay. A little competition is healthy.
He's expected to win outright in June. If he does, he'll focus on helping other Republican candidates win in November. If Republicans win a majority on the city council, they can elect a Republican city council president. Kersey wouldn't say who he thought that should be.
One thing I like that my colleague Scott Sherman has suggested is that that we rotate that position around on an annual basis.
Sherman had another idea.
If Ray wins, I wouldn't mind taking a shot at it.
Sherman's opponent, DeCesar, knows most of the attention is on District 1, but he's hoping to change that.
I understand what that open seat means to our city council right now, and rightfully it has a very big place in the news cycle and what people are thinking about. So that's not a bad thing whatsoever. It's very important. But our goal is to let people know how important District 7 is as well.
He and the other candidates will be pushing over the next few months to get enough votes to continue campaigning after the June 7th primary. Claire Tregesser, KPBS News.
In the last 2 years, scams have cost businesses nearly $2 billion worldwide. Associated Press reporter John Moan explains why scammers rank China as the top spot to launder their money.
Gilbert Chikli has stolen millions from some of the world's biggest corporations. His lavishly furnished home in Israel is a compound with security cameras. It's a sign of his success.
We understood that a bank president does what he pleases, and via orders he gives, he can end up doing all kinds of impossible or unimaginable things. And therefore, I decided to pretend to be a president.
For years, he palmed himself off to company workers as their CEO, lying to people on the phone to send money. Yet the French-Israeli con artist could not spend his stolen cash because of a web of banking rules aimed at criminals like him.
China is a country where not everything is allowed, but in any case, money is king.
Until he found a pipeline in the shadows to funnel his ill-gotten gains, the People's Republic of China.
China has become a universal international gateway for all manner of scams.
The con artist told the AP he laundered most of his money through China and Hong Kong.
China is today the expert in these revolving money transfers.
The money washing machine Chikli used worked like this. He conned companies into sending money into Eastern Europe, then bounced the funds to China, after which arranged for them to be withdrawn in cash. The money would be used to purchase merchandise and commodities. Then for a bribe, a Chinese vendor would issue fake receipts to Chikli's shell companies, creating a legal paper trail. Typically, Chikli would buy some goods but forward most of the cash to another account he controlled. In the last step, Chikli sold the goods and sent his money to Israel, where false invoices made the entire sum look like legitimate profit. The Chinese government did not respond to any of the AP's inquiries for comment. Chikli is widely credited with pioneering the fake CEO scam, which federal investigators say is now widely copied and has cost businesses worldwide $1.8 billion in the last 2 years.
It's a huge scam. It's a significant scam, big dollars, and relatively recent. In a little over a year's time for us to get up to the $1 billion figure. It's scary.
Now retired from the FBI, J. Biankowski says the agency traced fake CEO scam transfers to 70 countries.
The money is has been initially going into over 70 different countries. At the very top of that list is Hong Kong and China.
Police believe Chinese migrants and Israeli conmen worked together in the Parisian neighborhood where Chikli once ran a clothing business. The groups created a money laundering system which some migrants believe to be the most effective, reliable way for Chinese merchants to send money back to China. The Chinese call this practice flying money. The French busted a similar network in a garment district in Paris suburb called Aubervilliers, where authorities accuse Chinese merchants of laundering money for North African drug dealers. Back in Israel, Chikli says he never tapped into those networks himself, but understands how they flourished. Last year, a French court convicted him of fraud in absentia. Israeli authorities would not say whether France had made a formal request for Chikli's extradition.
I was convicted because it spread everywhere. I'm an example. It's what's called a conviction by example.
Chikli maintains he's now living a simple life of a father and husband. He helped renovate a nearby synagogue. A sign in Hebrew outside of it thanks him for his help. Close to it, another reads, "Thou shalt not steal." Chikli didn't seem to care about contradictions. Rather, he embraced his role as a con artist to the AP. And now people will be able to see Chikli's power of persuasion on the silver screen in a French movie called Thank You for Calling. John Moan, Associated Press.
I'm Judy Woodruff. On the next NewsHour, we report from Iraq as the battle rages to control the key city of Mosul. That's Monday on the PBS NewsHour.
Reduce, reuse, and recycle. That's the idea behind a massive undertaking in Hillcrest this morning, where one homeowner says it's time to be out with the old and in with the new, all while thinking green.
2 bedrooms, 1 small bathroom, hardwood floors, and almost 23 years of memories in this quaint bungalow in Hillcrest. But it won't be here for long. That's because owner Ann Wilson is recycling it, not in parts and pieces, but the entire structure.
This is the biggest thing I've ever recycled, yeah.
After filing for a demolition permit, Wilson got a call from local entrepreneur Garnell Fitzhenley, who saves existing homes from demolition and finds individuals or businesses to reuse them. He says families can buy these homes for next to nothing compared to new homes, and developers can save money by working with ready-built structures.
And they end up being able to do the whole development for around $100 a square foot rather than $200 per square foot.
Fitzhenley says it simply makes sense to preserve the material and labor that originally went into the building. Built in 1925, Ann Wilson's 800-square-foot house is being moved from its current lot to San Ysidro, where the structure will be reused to create a new home for a local family.
I thought it was a great idea. I was really thrilled. It's recycling a house. It's preserving all the energy, and if he's pulling it off, I'm going to take a picture of it.
As Wilson watches her childhood home start its journey to its new home, she hopes more people realize reusing full structures is an option.
Out with the old, in with the new. Somebody will reuse this and live here and have a wonderful home.
The San Diego State's men's basketball team will be playing at Madison Square Garden in New York City tomorrow. The Aztecs missed out on NCAA tournament play this season, but are making a deep run in the National Invitation Tournament semifinals, hoping to beat George Washington University. Now, it's only the second time in their program's history that the team has made the NIT semis. And recapping tonight's top stories, Governor Jerry Brown has announced a deal to raise California's minimum wage. He says it would be a slow rise over time, eventually reaching $15 an hour by 2022. He says raising it is a matter of economic justice, but consideration would be given to delaying it in case of recession or other economic shortfall.
This is a proposal that takes into account the possibility of deficits. According to the formula, if 2 years out there's a deficit of a certain amount, then this can be deferred.
And Republican leaders and business groups are warning the increase would harm California's business reputation. In the meantime, backers of a plan to raise San Diego's minimum wage through a ballot measure say they will continue the campaign. That measure would raise the minimum wage to $11.50 an hour by next year and also calls for up to 5 paid 6 days a year. The proposed state law only calls for 3. And while lawmakers talk about a minimum wage hike, California State University professors are getting some support in their push for a 5% pay raise. A fact finder says they should get it over the next year and that the money should come from other projects. The university system has been offering just 2%, saying there is no money for anything more. Faculty members are planning a 5-day strike next month if there is no agreement. And the FBI says it's broken into an iPhone belonging to a gunman in last year's San Bernardino shootings. Agents hope to find evidence about the shooting on the phone. The announcement ends a court battle between the agency and Apple over hacking into iPhones. That touched off a debate over privacy rights versus security concerns. And here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. In November, California voters could decide to make recreational marijuana use. As part of our California Counts initiative, we look at how that could change the pot business in the state. Then, on Midday Edition, we'll talk about healthy eating with a look at a study on school kids and school breakfasts and a preview of a new documentary called Kitchenistas of National City. That's tomorrow at noon on KPBS Radio. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. From all of us here at KPBS, thanks for watching. Have a great evening. Good night.